Welcome everybody to Bitcoin Milwaukee meetup on, what is it, January 30th already, 2014. We're joined right now by Trace Mayer of Run to Gold. Among other things, he's an investor in BitPay as well as Armory Wallet more recently, and a luminary in the Bitcoin space, one of the foremost thought leaders and internet privacy advocates as well. So, Trace, if you would give us a little bit of background and take as much time as you need. I know that some of the folks here might not know who you are here in Milwaukee. So, tell us where you came from before you got into cryptocurrencies, and then maybe how you were introduced to Bitcoin in the first place.
Oh, well, thanks for the opportunity and the introduction. My background, I suppose, a digital native, grew up with the internet, one of the first to have it in our neighborhoods. So I kind of got involved in virtual currencies, etc., in the different online games that were very early on. Went to college, studied accounting because I thought that would be helpful in my entrepreneurial endeavors, and it has been. And then I went to law school, and in law school is where I actually ran into gold and silver. I was interested about money and currency, and I had an American legal history class and got to write the paper on whatever subject I wanted, so I decided to research about the history of money and currency in American law. And that kind of led me down this whole rabbit hole of gold and silver and sound money and fractional reserve banking and just all the conflicts that we've had in American law, all the way from Andrew Jackson and the first bank of the United States, the second bank, Lincoln consolidating the banking industry, Samuel Chase, who had been Treasury Secretary getting appointed later to the Supreme Court, striking down his own legislation as unconstitutional. I mean, it's just kind of reads out of a soap opera. Then you had Franklin Roosevelt and the Gold Cross cases, and so all of this was just fascinating to me. And so then when I ran across Bitcoin, pretty much when it first began, because I was one of the first people to publicly recommend it as a blogger, John Matonis and I. And so, I ran across it and I was like, wow, this is really cool and it's really interesting. And I think it was kind of this background of being a digital native, but also understanding sound money that really kind of helped me to shape my opinion on it and help shape the opinions of others. Whether it's James Turk, I sent him his first Bitcoins, or Jeff Berwick sent him his first Bitcoin. Rick Rule, Doug Casey, I would have sent them Bitcoins, but they didn't even want to play with it. Rick Rule said he wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Eric Sprott, just a lot of these people in the sound money movement. And that's really where I'm at. In Bitcoin itself, I've made investments, as you said, in BitPay, our merchant processor, and also in the Armory Wallet. And that's because I want people to hold their own private keys and be able to keep them safe and secure from any potential adversary.
That's interesting. I recently wanted to try the Armory Wallet, but I don't think they have, or maybe they do by now, but a couple weeks back I tried to download it, and I'm a Mac user predominantly, and I have the latest OS, which is Mavericks, I guess, and there wasn't a compatible version for Mavericks yet. So I guess talk about the cross-compatibility of the wallet, because I know it was one of the most cross-compatible, at least prior to Mac updating their operating system. And then also talk about Armory as compared to other wallets.
Yeah, so Armory is the safest, the most secure wallet that you'll find out there. And we're continuing to develop it out. We have Alan Reiners, our lead developer, founder, CEO over there, and we're up to 5 full-time developers now. So we're really going to be building out Armory and a lot of functionality with it. and it pioneered the whole concept of cold storage. And we've got a lot of other really neat things in store with it, whether it's fragmented backup that have already been implemented, whether it's secure print where it'll encrypt your seed before it sends it to the printer in case the printer's malicious. We want to introduce analog entropy so you can actually roll physical dice instead of relying on a pseudo random number generator. Basically, as the investor, the main directive I've given is I want it to be secure from any potential adversary, including the NSA. And that's a very important thing when we're talking about dealing with private keys and the ability to hold your capital and your wealth in these new digital assets. And hopefully with Armory we'll be able to implement other altcoins and things like that. As far as the cross-compatibility, from what I understand, it was Apple had introduced a change in their Python, and so that's what caused it to not work. But then I think one of our community members submitted a patch, but then it only worked with 0.9.0 and not 0.9.1, which is the latest update. So anyways, we're working through those things, but you know, it's like with anything tech related and Bitcoin related, there are bugs here and there, but overall we want to provide a good solid user experience. And like I said, I want people to be able to store their Bitcoins in the safest, most secure way possible. Because, you know, we used to have this rule like he who has the gold makes the rules, but what we're finding out is that he who has the private keys makes the rules. I don't know if people have read, but HSBC, they recently were denying people withdrawing cash out of their own bank account, physical cash. And that's an example where HSBC holds the private keys to the wealth, even though they don't hold the ownership to the wealth. But it's really the private keys that matter because that's how you control the assets. And they're controlling them in a way that's in direct opposition to how the owners want that wealth to be controlled. You know, the owners are saying, hey, give me physical cash in my hand, and HSBC is saying no. And so, or Lloyd's the ATMs weren't working. Or civil forfeiture, or any number of things when we're talking about private property rights. And really, that's what we've been able to create with Bitcoin is a new way of having and owning and securing property in this digital or in this information age.
Yeah, that's the thing that I think is most revolutionary about it. This ability to basically transmit property peer-to-peer over the internet is, you know, something that stands out to me as just huge. You mentioned all the ways in which you're efforting to secure the Armory wallet against any vector of attack or compromise, and you mentioned including NSA. I know a lot of the members who come to our meetup and folks I'm talking to, including, you know, local press who you know, have these questions and are trying to explain this stuff to the most generally public audience possible. How is that accomplished with Armory? That you're, you know, the big concern is, oh, the government will just eventually shut it down, so I'm not going to start to take notice and get interested. Or, you know, I really love Bitcoin. I see it as the way out of this, you know, system that I don't like or whatever. But just like every time, the rug will be pulled out from under me or all of us at some point. So can you talk a little bit about the surveillance vectors that you're thwarting with some of the features in the Armory wallet?
Well, like first we have to understand that Bitcoin's a protocol, and so it's running on lots of computers and miners all over the world, and it's open source. Anybody can review the code. And that's actually where the Bitcoins are stored. In order to move those Bitcoins around, that's where you have to be able to sign a transaction with a private key. And so with Armory, it's very simple to have a computer that's never touched the internet, and that's where the seed that then generates all of these private keys is kept. And so you can craft a transaction on a computer that does touch the internet, and then move it via USB over to your computer that's never touched the internet, and sign it, and then take it back and broadcast it to the network, and then those Bitcoins move. In terms of how it can help increase your privacy is, for example, if you're using the Electrum wallet and you send out a request to figure out how many Bitcoins are held in a particular address's balance, that could become a potential surveillance vector. With Armory, one of the big inconveniences is that you have to download the entire blockchain. But at the same time, that also means that you're able to verify the balances in an address without sending out any additional information to any third parties. So that would be a way that you can reduce the potential attack vector from a surveillance perspective of someone being able to figure out which addresses you own or control, or at least are watching.
So I guess that leads to the next thought. These hearings this week, I don't know if you were able to watch some or any bit of them. I watched a couple bits here and there that I could catch or whatever, but it sounds like, with these hearings and the ones back in November, the buzzwords keep getting thrown around. It sounds like a lot of scaremongering or whatever. Saying how much Bitcoin is used for all of these very scary illicit things. What do you see coming? I mean, certainly it sounds like there will be some guidances issued after these hearings have been conducted, and they, these regulatory bodies do their investigations and things. What kinds, like if you were to look ahead and imagine what they might come out and say are the new guidances for Bitcoin businesses, what would that be?
Yeah, I actually did attend the New York hearings. That's why I'm in New York. My throat's a little raspy. It's been frigid here. I think I might have injured it walking around in the cold. But anyway, I think that overall we already kind of have a regulatory framework for Bitcoin businesses to operate within. And as we've seen with Silk Road and now Charlie Shrem, they're able to piece together through their investigations and figure out, or at least allege, wrongdoing. And so I don't think that it's like this complete safe haven for criminals to operate in Bitcoin. If anything, it's probably too traceable because we got that blockchain. Nevertheless, I think that we're going to see a lot more corporate adoption in 2014. Overstock, Zynga, we've got a lot of corporate companies coming on board, and actually the CEO of Overstock, he just said today that not to discount Overstock holding Bitcoin on its treasury balance, on its balance sheet. So I mean that's a very exciting thing, because if we have any of these large corporations holding Bitcoin as cash, then that could be a lot of money and a lot of capital that goes in. And they're going to want there to be a regulatory framework and a way to account for Bitcoin and a way to carry it on their books and a way for the auditors to verify that they own or control it, etc. And all of that kind of has to be worked out with regulators and with legislation and etc. And that's where I think we're kind of going. We're accepting the reality that the private keys of wealth are going to be decentralized, and they're going to try and figure out how to maintain some control over wealth when that happens, and as that's happening right now.
Yeah, they're definitely going to continue to try and grasp for some measures of control over the technology. I wonder how that might be possible. I always ruminate on this because the nature of Bitcoin and you know, the decentralized network and everything is censorship resistant. So, of course, everywhere there's you know, kind of like free market or just you know, peer-to-peer behavior that, let's say, is system D type behavior, gray market behavior. Do you think that that'll keep these regulators busy trying to like plug up all the holes in their control?
Well, that's assuming that regulators are even busy. I mean, we saw that with the SEC that there were a whole bunch of SEC attorneys that were watching porn 8 hours a day. So to think that these regulators are like really working hard, like trying to catch these dragons or whatever, these nefarious actors, I think is, you know, maybe we're watching too much TV or movie, a lot of fiction. But of those regulators that are actually trying to, you know, catch these bad actors, it's just a new technology. It's, as you said, it's censorship resistant. Bill Gates and Eric Schmidt both described it as a technological tour de force. So I mean, it's not going to go away, and there's a lot of things that can be done to further enhance both the pseudo-anonymity, the privacy, or creating cryptocurrencies specifically for the anonymity, like anonymous coin or zero coin. And so I've never really thought that Bitcoin was a very good place for criminals to be operating in because it has that blockchain, which can leave a lot of footprints for forensic accounting and things like that. And, you know, Palantir is going to get in here and start mining all of this. So I mean, I've never really thought it's been a very good idea to kind of operate in Bitcoin because all that could be correlated against like cell phone records and text messages and things like that. So I mean, but other cryptocurrencies like zero coin or anonymous coin that are built specifically to have much greater privacy and anonymity protections, they can be built off of this same technology. And so, you know, the regulators, they're just going to have to figure out a way to they're just going to have to work a little bit harder. They're not going to be able to run a query of all the purchases from some specific social security number and get all their credit card accounts and see everything they bought. I mean, now they're actually going to have to go out and do some real investigative work. They can't just do that. But that's a boon on the side of civil liberties. You know, we've seen the IRS being used to target people based on political views. No longer will you have to worry about who's in power in 20 years doing a query to find out if you bought books written by Obama or books written by Bush or whoever it is, so that they can then target you politically. I think we're going to move into a world where people stop just defecating their personal information all over the place on the internet. We're going to have a little bit more privacy hygiene as a society, or at least those people who want to have that privacy. They're going to be able to implement it a little bit more in their own personal situations.
Yeah, I know, you know, privacy is important to you and a lot of the people who are attracted to Bitcoin in the first place. You have a project called How to Vanish, is that right?
Yeah, howtovanish.com. That's one of my other websites where we have some fun helping people protect themselves from like identity theft with Target, for example.
Tell us more about How to Vanish and how it relates to maybe your work in Bitcoin and your background as well.
Yeah, so How to Vanish, our kind of a whole premise there is, you know, what can we do with the least amount of cost, both in time and money, to get the greatest return in terms of increased privacy. And, you know, a good example is this massive data breach at Target. 110 million people, plus another million at Neiman Marcus. I mean, that's a lot of personal information that's been compromised. I was just talking to a friend of mine today. It took him 3 hours. He's cleaning up a mess because someone had stolen his credit card and been charging up all types of fraudulent stuff. I mean, these are costs and externalities that get shifted onto consumers as a result of having our payment mechanism tied to identity. If Target had accepted Bitcoin, not only would they currently be saving about $50 million a year in transaction fees, but all the people who had paid with Bitcoin, just like all the people who had paid with cash, they wouldn't be at risk of all the identity theft that's going on and will go on as a result of those breaches. And so, I think it's very important for people to kind of take that into account and support merchants like Overstock who do let you pay with Bitcoin, so that you can just not leave as many digital footprints that can later be used to cause problems for you.
So, I see it like, in order to be as impervious to the iron fist, so to speak, as possible, adoption needs to speed up even more than its breakneck pace that it's already at. And so that's a lot of what we focus on here with our meetup group, is working on fast tracking user and merchant adoption in our area, Milwaukee, greater Milwaukee metro area. What do you see as most important, or where the focus should lie for, let's say, groups like ours, or just any given user in spreading Bitcoin adoption? Is it merchants? Is it users? Is it something else?
Yeah, so there's an old Chinese proverb that's be like water, flow around, not through obstacles. All of this regulation, things like that. I mean, if you want to run a larger business, you're going to have to deal with it. But for the most part, if you can just flow around any obstacles, like, all the better, right? So, having meetup groups like this, you can establish markets, kind of like the Satoshi Square in New York and LA and San Francisco, where you're buying and selling Bitcoins. That way you're not going through an exchange like Mt. Gox, where they might not send your money out. In terms of merchant acceptance, that's another great opportunity. You can send them to BitPay, they make it easy, or you can just help them figure out how to hold their own Bitcoins, with an Armory Wallet. And I think that accepting Bitcoins is a great way for businesses to acquire Bitcoin, especially if they're dealing with a product that they don't necessarily need to sell the Bitcoin in order to replace it. If they're doing a personal service or something. Like the Bees brothers, they're a couple of teenage entrepreneurs in Utah. They sell honey products like honey caramels and wet balls and stuff. And from what I understand, they haven't sold any of their Bitcoins. And I had bought some product from them years ago, and those Bitcoins, I think I bought $80 worth of product from them at the time, and now those Bitcoins are worth $15,000 or something absurd like that. And so, merchants who can acquire and save in a unit of account that is limited, they can't be inflated with quantitative easing, where they hold the private keys instead of being in a bank account. They can get a tax lien on it, or get a judgment against it, or anything like that. I mean, you literally hold the private keys. Like, nobody's going to get those out of your Armory wallet without your consent, one way or the other. So I think that that's a very important thing, and just starting to transition more and more economic behavior into what I like to term cyberspace. I think is just an important thing to do. Just slowly leave the old world, kind of like people left Europe and came to America. Like, we can leave this old world of fiat currency and venture into cyberspace.
Well said. So, I mentioned that we like to focus on user adoption here, and we're going to do some more events like this. But in a couple months ago, we did like some community outreach work. We had booths at different community events and just talked to passersby about Bitcoin to raise awareness around here about it, and try to, experience contending with the different, levels of knowledge or awareness that the general public might have, or their opposition to it, or their preconceived notions, and trying to come up with the most agnostic way of reaching people about this thing. Still explaining the characteristics about it that we feel are very important. I'm sure we're all in agreement, including yourself, in a way that's appealing to just about anybody. And that's one thing I see as a big hurdle, is, I guess, overcoming the notions about a deflationary currency, for example, and the dangers that we've been told about in school and such, and many philosophical or cultural viewpoints like that I see as a big hurdle. What can you say to that, or what do you think, if maybe that's not a major hurdle that you see? What's a major hurdle in your opinion in terms of getting to more mainstream adoption?
Well, I think the major hurdle is just the ease of use right now. It is kind of a complicated magic internet money to a lot of people. And so, it really takes kind of that personal one-on-one training, showing people kind of how it works, what they need to keep safe and secure. I wrote a free Bitcoin guide, freebitcoinguide.com, that kind of walks people through the different levels or layers of sophistication as they get started into Bitcoin. Because it's really a big daunting task, I think, for the brand new person. And with Bitcoin kind of racing ahead, it just leaves behind those who haven't taken that time and effort to educate themselves on it, just like any technology does. But eventually those Luddites, they'll be the merchants taking Bitcoin to provide services like cleaning our toilets or cooking us meals or whatever, right?
Yeah, and I think pulling them out of the Stone Age too. So many folks, certainly in Middle America, maybe not so much on the coasts, but probably there too, are kind of stuck on paper still for managing their small businesses and retail establishments, hospitality businesses. And I think that's a big hurdle, kind of pulling people into the digital age. And like, I appreciate that you pointed out the usability factor. I see some cool things coming out about making it easier to use. What go ahead with your thought you were going to just throw in there, and then what do you see in terms of new tools that make Bitcoin easier to use coming out?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a language, The more people who speak English, the more valuable it is to speak English, as opposed to like one of those clicking languages in Africa or whatever. And so as you help people, one, learn how to speak Bitcoin, and then two, you can do things like add them to the coinmap.org or to the business directories or things like that, and let them know, like, hey, if you just accept Bitcoin, and like here's your public key, and you have it printed off and laminated for them, like that's all they need, to receive payment. And then they know that they're getting some free advertising out of this, and they might have a person walk in and want to buy something from them. So I think that's a very kind of important thing is, we do have to, a lot of this, the network effects we talk about have to do with all of this education, all of this user education, knowing how to use it, how to keep it safe, secure, understanding it. I mean, a lot of people speak dollars, a lot of people speak euros. This is just, this is just another example of where it really takes a lot of effort to build that network and to help people learn and understand and use it. And the efforts don't go unnoticed. Every person that we kind of bring into the fold, it just makes it that much bigger and more pervasive. Kind of like fax machines or telephones, cell phones, etc. Any technology.
We just had a bunch more people trickle in since we started our Hangout, and I know there's some folks, members here that have some questions, so I'm going to kind of open it up, Trace, to members to ask you questions. So if you guys just came in, Trace is, if you want to know about gold in relation to Bitcoin, if you want to know about financial security online, or even just internet security in general, or if you want to know about some of the Bitcoin businesses he's invested in, BitPay and Armory Wallet. These are the kinds of things we have here. We have Trace here to talk to us about. So I know we have one question right away from kind of our education czar in our group, Mike Gale. So I'm going to give Mike the mic.
Hi, thanks for joining us. Quick question for you. One of kind of my hotspots is key security and privacy. And I guess I'd like to know, one of the things we talked about 2 or 3 weeks ago was inheritance wallets, where for some unforeseen event you get hit by a bus or you die of a heart attack, what happens to the private keys? Is there something that you can recommend or something coming in Armory to address that?
Actually, we already have that functionality built into Armory with what's called fragmented backups, and we use Shamir secret sharing so that you can create a wallet and then split encrypt the seed and then split it up so that you need, say, 3 out of 5 pieces in order to recreate the wallet. So, I mean, we already have that built up so someone could have an estate plan that's built that way. For example, they distribute the 5 pieces to maybe 1 piece to their attorney, 1 piece to their parents, 1 piece to their brother, 1 piece to their sister, etc. And then it will take 3 out of 5 to recreate the wallet, and then they can have transactions already signed that just need to be broadcasted and send bitcoins into that new wallet. So, I mean, I think most of the tools are already there for people to resolve a lot of people's concerns. It's just a matter of getting the word out that they're there.
Cool. Thanks, Trace. We have a question from Chris Brissett, our trumpet-playing Litecoin miner. So, here you go, Chris.
Hey, Trace. I apologize if you already covered this. I just walked in, but I noticed that you're a fan of the Rothbard school. You studied him quite a bit. So I want to know what you think of this kind of a schism, I guess we call it, going on in the Austrian School of Economics, because there's kind of a half and half. There's the Peter Schiff type, and then on the other half, there's the other side who they're kind of skeptical, but they're open to it. What did you think? What do you think? Like, I guess, what do you think Rothbard's take on this schism would be?
I think that the major cause of the schism is ignorance, and the reason that the schism is kind of persistent is there's all the error. So you get people like Peter Schiff, not only are they ignorant of the mathematics and the technology and the computer science behind it, but then they're arrogant in their own opinions. And we see what effect that's had on their financial performance on the scoreboard. Because ultimately, I think that Bitcoin is a solution to a lot of the problems, and the market is rewarding the solutions. And so I think the Mises and Rothbard would most likely have the mental aptitude and ability to understand Bitcoin. And then once they were able to understand it, I think they'd very easily be able to put it into their framework.
Cool. Does anybody else have a question for Trace? Chris? The other Chris? Oh. 1 second. Okay. We have a question from our member James, who was a CTO of BitSpend, if you remember BitSpend. and he's the current CTO
yeah, I like
of Bitmarkers. Yeah, well, James is the reason he's here with us today. So I'm going to turn the mic to James.
Hey, Trace, how's it going? I hope this hasn't already been covered. Just a quick question. Are you aware of the concept of the difference between currency and money, Shirley? And do you think that Mises and Rothbard would still consider it money as opposed to like the intrinsic value? I know nobody likes that word of gold. Someone called that a poor translation. As in the natural real-world use of a particular substance.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually pushed forward this work, I think, in writing. Like if you go to run2bitcoin.com, it'll forward, and at the end of that article, I've got several articles I've written. One of them is why Bitcoin is tangible. And that article actually, I think, persuaded James Turk over at Gold Money to come over to the Bitcoin side. And in my book, The Great Credit Contraction, I delineate between money substitutes, illusions, but all three of them can be currency. And so currency would be our ordinary day-to-day transactional medium. Money would have to be something that's limited in amount by its internal characteristics. That would give it intrinsic value, as opposed to something that's limited in amount by external characteristics like counterfeiting laws. And then a money substitute would be a claim on money, like a silver certificate or a gold certificate. And then these illusions, like euros, dollars, etc., they aren't a claim on anything. They're not limited in amount by anything. They're just kind of this illusion that we use as currency. And so that's how I personally like to define and delineate between all of them. And I put Bitcoin in the money space because it's limited in amount by its intrinsic characteristics, by the math, just like gold or silver is limited in amount by their internal characteristics of the atoms. You know, and either gold or silver or Bitcoin or dollars or euros, all of them can be currency. And so a lot of the argument is semantic. You know, not only in money and currency argument, but also in the inflation-deflation argument. You know, it's often semantic. You can chase your tail forever if you don't agree on what the terms mean that you're arguing about, and then you don't really have an intelligible discussion. So that's one of the reasons I try to first define the terms so that we can then isolate the issues and have an intelligible discussion.
Yeah, that's good. Starting with definitions is so important. Always. You mentioned your book and then a website and article. I think the article's title was Why Bitcoin is Tangible. Is that right? But tell us the website again. It was a little bit hard to hear. And then talk a little bit about your book.
Oh, it's on Run to Gold, but you can also get there if you go to run2bitcoin.com. That'll also take you to the page. I have the Bitcoin price on there, but then I have links to pretty much all the Bitcoin articles I've written over the years, and at least the really good ones where I've tried to push forward the thinking from an Austrian school perspective, because you know Peter Schiff 30 minutes about a year ago at an investment conference, and you could see his mind trying to understand just the very basics of Bitcoin, like the blockchain, and he finally conceded, like, I'm not smart enough for Bitcoin. I mean, it's like if you go to YouTube and search Peter Schiff, Trace Mayer, Bitcoin, like you'll see the video. He says it himself. So I mean, you can't come to Bitcoin and be arrogant if you're ignorant. Otherwise, you know, why does your opinion even matter? You don't even know how it functions. I mean, why should anybody take your opinion with a grain of salt, right? So I think it's very important that we understand how Bitcoin functions, and then that we're also not arrogant, because as we move into this information age, we're finding something very interesting. Mises and Rothbard and Minger, they came up with this regression theorem, where money arose out of some commodity that previously had use. But as we move into the information age, we're finding actually, in a way, the exact opposite. We're finding things that start off as money or currency, like Bitcoin, but then acquire some other use. For example, colored coins or Mastercoin project, etc. And then those other uses begin to impact its exchange value. So, I mean, this is really an interesting space intellectually, but if you're just going to be ignorant as to the tech and the mathematics, and then you're going to be arrogant in your dogmatic view, then how can you push forward any actual intellectual work? Which, that's one thing I'm very disappointed in a lot of these old Austrian school thinkers, whether it's Lou Rockwell or Gary North or Peter Schiff, etc. Because I mean, I've personally spent a lot of time with them behind the scenes, and it really kind of annoys me. But perhaps that's why people in Bitcoin land have a lot higher net worth, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting to me how all of a sudden in recent months it seems there's been some Bitcoin detractors from the types of camps that you would never guess, like some of the gold bug libertarian types. So I kind of think Bitcoin is for everybody, and anybody who wants to open themselves up to understanding it could be able to, and that's kind of what we work on here with creating the educational content we do, and trying to just share it in an understandable way with anybody who wants to come to our meetings or that we meet on the street in our regular lives. And often that's folks who are concerned about the deflationary property of it, or maybe they see that it's tainted by the Silk Road reputation, although I'm not seeing that so much anymore. Or maybe they see that it's tainted by its reputation for like attracting libertarians. What do you see as like the hurdles in overcoming when you run into someone new that you'd really like to share Bitcoin with, and might put up some resistance?
Well, I've been around it a long time. I just kind of I don't try to force the understanding to anybody. I've had an awful lot more people coming back to me though, especially in interviews. It's like, yeah, he first recommended I buy it at 75 cents or $5 or $13 or whatever it is, and I like to really rub it. I like to rub their nose in that because they had it handed to them on a silver platter. Like, why'd they miss it? But we're just at kind of the beginning of this. And another thing that I think we kind of we don't appreciate is, like, gold is gold, and gold is the same today as it was 2,000 years ago. And I think one of the reasons that the dollar was able to outcompete gold is because the dollar is extensible. Fiat currency is extensible. But it's not limited in amount, which is very problematic. Bitcoin is both extensible and limited in amount. So I think it's just a matter of time over the next 10, 20 years for this new breed of currency, this math-based currency, this cryptocurrency, to outcompete the fiat because it's limited in amount and it's extensible. And so, but if you're talking to someone like Peter Schiff or Gary North, I mean, they don't even have any idea what extensible means. So, we have a lot of education to do. And the other thing is, we're advancing stuff forward at such a rapid rate that this issue of asymmetric knowledge and information is, the gulf is only going to get bigger. I don't think there's anybody who fully understands all of Bitcoin because it's such a complicated subject. All the way from mining to the cryptography to, I mean, all of it. I mean, it's very complicated. There's a lot of stuff going on. Mastercoin, colored coins projects, you know, and the rate of change and the rate at which it extensifies is just going to continue speeding up as the price goes up, and all of that's going to feed into the price one way or the other. You know, whether Bitcoin is being used as a currency or a store of value or day-to-day transactions, or whether it's being used to secure other assets like colored coins or Mastercoin, or whether it's used as the transactional medium to move value from one server to another. You know, all of this. You know, anybody who tries to pin Bitcoin into one little box and thinks they understand it. I mean, I understand Bitcoin enough to know that I don't understand all of it, and I think that that's a very good position for people to kind of take. You know, research it, try to educate yourself on it, but realize that there's a lot here, and it, you know, when you start picking away at the surface, like. There's a lot here, and that's why I think people like Ray Dalio over at Bridgewater, he was asked about Bitcoin, and he says, I don't understand it, I don't get it. You know, at least he's honest about it. And I've got a friend who is friends with Ray, and my friend, he went to Harvard. He's a really sharp guy, and he said that Ray is one of the smartest people he's ever met in his entire life. And so, you know, don't be afraid if you don't understand it. You don't have to be an expert on everything, and you know, just try to get as much knowledge as you can about certain things and make the best decisions you can. But this idea that we have to be an expert on everything, kind of like Peter Schiff or Gary North, you know, they want to take this all-expansive positioning. There are very few people of Rothbard or Mises' intellectual capacity, and they're somewhat unique in that sense of having mastery over so many different areas of knowledge. And you know, we shouldn't necessarily try to make ourselves out to be a Mises or a Rothbard. I think it's just kind of setting ourselves up for a fall.
Very well said. A lot of nodding heads in here. So. I guess 2 more questions, and then we'll get you out of here. We're super grateful that you were able to join us, and we'd love to have you back in a couple months after, you know, which might feel like a decade in Bitcoin land.
Well, we're going to have some very interesting news that comes out hopefully in the next week or so. Just funded another deal. I can't really talk about it until we do the press release, but yeah, I'll be able to talk about that, which will be a lot of fun.
Cool. We'll be excited. And you say a week or so, and is that for Armory?
I can't talk about who it's for, but I mean, not for Armory. I mean, Armory is very well funded already because we funded it partly with Bitcoins, and the Bitcoins went up a bunch. So we got 5 full-time developers on at Armory, and they're doing a lot of really great work. But no, this is a different deal that we've done multi-million-dollar round for. So I mean, it's going to be a big help for the Bitcoin ecosystem, and I'd love to talk more about it. I just can't do it right now. I'm sure you understand.
Yeah, no, we do understand, and we're super excited. Congratulations. All of us here are eager to support it or use it or whatever it might be, and we'd love to have you back to tell us more about it in depth and stuff. I guess the last 2 questions, one short one and one maybe a little longer. First, do you have a price projection for the year, or you know, at any point during the year, do you see a target you'd like to share with us? And then you've mentioned a couple things regarding the future of the technology of Bitcoin, like colored coins, Mastercoin. We had the guys from Ethereum call us from Miami last week, and that was a real treat, talking to basically the whole team there. Could you talk a little bit about that and maybe briefly explain it, because we have several new members who I know are here for their first time tonight, and some who are here for maybe their second or third time, who are very interested in Bitcoin but don't come from the the technical background that so many early adopters do. So the price projection, and then colored coins, and the second level protocol layers.
Yeah, so price projections, to be honest, I got no idea. There's a bitbet.us, there's a bet on there. There's, I think, 100 Bitcoin saying it will not go above 10,000 sometimes in 2014, and 60 Bitcoin saying that it will. I mean, if we see the same type of volatility we did in 2013, I mean, that's like $48,000 a coin. As far as the, so I mean, I'd say like very upper bounds, probably like 40,000 a coin in 2014. I think that's highly unlikely, though. I think it's highly unlikely that we would see below $500 a coin. So in terms of downside and upside, probably somewhere 3,000-4,000 a coin would not surprise me. If I were to make a intersects. But as far as Ethereum goes, I am very impressed with Vitalik. With Bitcoin Magazine, I helped fund Bitcoin Magazine and also on the editorial board there, and Vitalik's our lead writer. And so I've been able to follow a lot of his work. We're on like our 17th issue or something. And to find, I mean, he's a young kid and just an absolute savant. I mean, there's a lot of intellectual capacity there. And so I'm actually very interested and encouraged with this Ethereum project. I think it could very well be one of the most promising projects in crypto space in 2014. As far as whether it'll actually catch on and like generate any profits for people, probably not. Our Bitcoin Magazine hasn't been a very profitable venture. But there have been a lot of ancillary side effects as a result of it. For example, all the education and helping people understand Bitcoin. I mean, how do you really quantify all of that? I mean, it's difficult to do. So it's been somewhat of like a marketing expense for Bitcoin. So, whether we'll see Ethereum have gains, like a year ago, I recommended Litecoin in an investment newsletter. It was 7 cents, and it went up to $50. I don't know that we'll see that type of price action in Ethereum, but if Ethereum does gain traction and become used for things, I think it could be a very promising project. And going back to the NSA and how they've compromised Google's and Apple's and Facebook's and things, the internet could very well have to reorganize and reconstitute itself. And Ethereum would be able to do a lot of that, with proof of bandwidth, proof of processing, using Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies as payment methods and transactions to pay for those resources. Then people could be running not just miners, but having hard drives on there that are kind of replacing the Dropboxes or the Amazon Web Services of the world. I mean, that's the type of stuff that we can build out now that we've got a protocol for transferring value over the internet. So the internet in general, I think, is going to need to go through this big creative destruction phase to remove, as Apple calls them, these malicious actors. And Ethereum is going to be one of those research and development projects where we get to see whether something fruitful comes out of it or not. And personally, I'm very encouraged by what I see so far with it.
Yeah, we all agree about Vitalik and his writing. I try to share that with everybody who comes through our doors, that they should check out this article or that article. It seems like every time he publishes something, it's just a fascinating read, and even though it's high level stuff, he really is able to relate it to someone who's interested in understanding what this technology can do and what it's all about. So yeah, we're excited about that project as well, and rooting for all the things that you have your hand in, Trace. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're really look forward to having you back, and you can maybe share some more details about some of these surprises you have in store.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and maybe one of these days I'll be able to make it up there. It's fun to go around to all these meetups.
We would love to have you. Actually, we're going to have Andreas here in person in 2 weeks, so we'd be more than happy to host you as well and accommodate you.
Wonderful. Yeah, Andreas, a great friend of mine, so I know he'll be very helpful out there too.
Cool. Well, thanks so much again, Trace, for all your time tonight, and I'll be in touch in the near future. Everyone here says bye, and thank you too, I'm sure.
Okay, thanks.